County Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, May the 14th, 2019. Clerk, please call the roll.
Calling the roll, Ms. Baker. Here. Mr. Miller. Here. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher. Here. Mr. Schron. Here. Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent. Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown is absent at the moment. Ms. Stevens.
Present.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Council President Brady.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comment?
There is none.
All right. Well, the first item we're dealing with today is the confirmation hearing. Welcome to the confirmation hearing at which Council will consider the appointment of Gregory Huth as the Director of Law of Cuyahoga County. The Department of Law was originally established in 2011 and acts as the advisor and representative for both the Council and the Executive. The Director of Law must be an attorney licensed to practice law in Ohio, must have 5 years' experience representing a political subdivision of the state. The department was previously headed, as you all know, by Robert Triazzi. The hearing process will proceed as follows. The nominee will be offered an opportunity to address his qualifications, motivations for seeking the position, and outlooks and plans regarding the office. Council members will then be offered the opportunity to ask questions of the nominee. We will do so in rounds, allowing each council member to ask 2 questions per round until all council questions have been answered. Once all questions have been answered, we will entertain a motion to recommend the council approve or reject the nomination at tonight's regular meeting. If we're not ready to act on that motion today, we will defer to making a recommendation. Assuming a motion to recommend approval or rejection has been made, the council will vote on that recommendation at tonight's regular meeting. Thank you, and let's begin. Clerk, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution number 2019-0105, confirming the county executive's appointment of Gregory G. Huth upon his taking the oath of office as Cuyahoga County Director of Law.
All right, welcome, Mr. Huth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a little bit about my background. I started off in the public sector. There we go. I started off in the public sector in late 1993 as a clerk in the law department for the city of Lakewood. That's where I really kind of got bitten by the bug for local government, and when I really got fascinated by what local government can do and the impacts it can have on a community. I was there as a clerk, and then in late 93 when I got my ticket, I was hired as an assistant law director. Worked primarily there with their planning and development department, helping them work with some CDBG issues related to their block grant and helping them with an update to their zoning code. From there, I went to the City of Cleveland's law department. Was hired at that point to work in their real estate development section, worked primarily with the economic development department for about 1.5 years, and then after that went into be the assistant director of the economic development department. This was all under Mayor White's administration. When Mayor Campbell came in, I went back into the law department for about 1.5 years again, working primarily with the development department, working on all sorts of real estate transactions, financing transactions, TIF. We put together some pretty neat financings for developments around the city. I also did a lot of public records work, some ethics work for the department and other departments around the city. From there, spent some time then also as I said, the assistant director in the economic development department, and also the director of the economic development department under Mayor Campbell at the end of her administration. From there, I went to the firm of Cotw. This was about 2006. I was there from 2006, 2008. Now, if you remember 2006, 2008, I joined the firm in their real estate section. It wasn't the greatest time in the world to be focusing on real estate development. So about 2008, we decided to part ways. It was a very amicable parting. Those folks were great. They let me spend as much as up to 6 months using their offices and their facilities to transition. Did spend a little bit of time working in the private sector. Decided that really wasn't my thing, so I had an opportunity to go to work for the county prosecutor's office here in Cuyahoga County. That started in 2008, and spent about 5.5 years there. Some of the major projects I worked on there included the financings and the contracting for both the convention center and the convention hotel. Some of the bigger projects I did also a lot of public records work there and some ethics work for the department, for the prosecutor's office there. After that, in 2015, I joined the city of Cincinnati as the deputy director of their development department, the combined department down there, much like it is up here, where community and economic development are put together. After about a year and a half down there, of driving back and forth and realizing I hadn't moved yet, I figured I really didn't want to move, so I started looking for a position back up here. The position that I have now with the development department came open in and I joined there in January of last year. And as you know, I've been working primarily on a lot of the loan portfolio issues, getting those things resolved, which is generally helping the department to, as they say, make the trains run on time. So when this opportunity came open, this position opened up in the law department, I decided that it's something I really wanted to take a look at, get back into doing the legal work. The nice thing, I think the fun thing about being in a law department is you're going to get to touch everything. You get to help everybody throughout the entire system, and it's something I like doing. I like to help, I like to be a problem solver, and that's what the role I think the law department can be. So that's why I applied for the position, and one of the things that make me excited about being here today to talk with you about it. So,
thank you, Mr. Huth. So just relax and slow down. I was going to ask you one of the big obvious questions that we have here in terms of our relationship with the law director, and that's that since you both represent the executive and the county council, how would you intend to balance those sometimes difficult to balance responsibilities?
Well, as the charter says, the department and the director represent both. So it's the point of being able to keep that communication open to both the executive and the council side. It's always making sure everybody understands what's going on, being as open as I possibly can in every event without violating any privileges and so forth. But I believe that we need to be of service to both sides thoroughly. We have to be able to be there to advise and represent the council as well as the executive in any matter. So.
All right, thank you. Who wants to go second? Councilwoman?
Thank you, President Brady. And through the chair to Mr. Huth, what is your vision for, I feel that you've probably thought about this and then made a decision to move from development to law. So what is your vision for your first 100 days if confirmed?
Councilwoman, I think one of the things I want to focus on is getting my hands around kind of the operations within the department. I've gotten a little bit familiar with it over the last 2 or 3 weeks since I was nominated. But there's some operational things I want to be sure I understand. But I think vision overall, even maybe looking beyond that 100 days, is I want this to be a department that people look forward to coming to work to every day. That when people are looking for a position that we get considered, we're considered very highly as a place to come to work. And not just work for a few years, but spend a career here. This is really important work. So we need to have people that want to do it and want to be committed to it. So my goal here, my vision, is to create a department that has that feeling.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions about risk management.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be your vision in terms of risk management and division of the law department?
Well, Councilman, right now, when the department was first set up, there was a head of the risk management division. I don't think that position's filled right now. So one of my first steps would be to identify someone to fill that position so we can get a better understanding of all the different options out there that are available to us. Of course, we're self-insured for the most part, but there are some things we can insure for. But I think getting that position filled would be critical too.
And where do you currently see opportunities to reduce the county's liability?
Well, that's a kind of a tough question because there's so much that I don't know yet. There's a lot I have to learn here. But I think, again, filling that position with somebody who has a real solid understanding of the different options out there to us would be the best way to go, I think.
And
my first move.
Side question, once you, I know it's kind of new to you, but once you decide what your steps would be in terms of reducing the county's liability, could you confer with council, letting us know?
Absolutely.
Do you plan to review the county's risk management strategies, or have you looked at them already?
I have not, but that would certainly be on the list of things I need to do within the first 100 days, yes.
Okay. And final question, do you believe the county should remain self-insured for general liability?
Well, that does require some evaluation of where we are right now. Obviously, with the different issues we're dealing with, of course, as far as the jail goes, I can't imagine that it would be economical for us to find an insurer at this point. So I think we have to get through this, get beyond that, and then we can figure out what the next steps are as far as an insurer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Brown.
Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
As you know, Ed Morales is going to be retiring soon, and he was responsible for some of the collective bargaining agreements. And while some of the law assistants were also responsible for others, moving forward, how do you think the law department should handle this, or if it should be the responsibility of HR?
Councilman, I think all that should be within the law department. These are obviously all legally binding agreements, and I think the lawyers really need to be at the lead or at the front of those negotiations. If it's our responsibility to represent legally the county and advise the county on those issues. So I really think all that should be brought into the law department.
Okay. Well, if the collecting bargaining would continue to be under two different departments, how will you ensure that there are uniform plans or strategies as a part of the operations?
Well, I don't think, my preference is it wouldn't be under two departments, first of all. I'd like to have it all in one place, just exactly for that reason, so that we can be sure that the same policies and policies are applied in both situations. If somehow it doesn't end up the way I would like it to, then it's just a matter of making sure we are all constantly talking to each other and reviewing each other's work before anything is finalized.
Very much. And my next question would be, where do you believe there are opportunities for regional collaboration with municipalities as far as the law department is concerned?
I'm sorry, can you give me an example of what you're thinking?
With our being council representatives, we look at, I guess CCOMs would be one, the communication. So in the legal department, do you see any vision as far as what you could offer some of our municipalities as far as the area of collaboration?
If Councilman, if you're suggesting, could we assist them in their negotiation of their contracts and things? The quick look that I took of the way the law department is described in the code right now, I'm not sure it's 100% clear that we could do that. I think if there's an opportunity like that would present itself, then I would want to certainly come here and seek authority through a change that I think it's Section 205 of the code, so that we clearly have the authority to contract with a municipality to provide those services to them. It does, of course, become a balancing of do we have the time, do we have the person power to handle it? But if the opportunity is there and we have the resources to do it, and then we can, do a little revenue generation for us and to save the community some dollars at the same time. Sure, we could do that.
Council President.
Okay. Councilwoman Baker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, Mr. Huth, I had a chance to sit down and talk with you, so many of my questions have been answered, and I'm looking forward to hopefully your confirmation today. But a couple of things. I did have some experience working with you recently on some legislation, and that delicate balance that the President talked about between the executive and county council, I thought you did a very good job in trying to make sure that both sides were heard and understood and come together. So I've seen you at work, and I am appreciative of that.
Thank you.
I guess the question I would have, being on Economic Development Committee, we worked on the economic development portfolios and all that evolved through that, and I know you kind of came towards the tail end of that, but can you tell me how, with the skills that you have, how you did manage to work with those that maybe you didn't even know that well to move forward in getting the results that we now have? And there's a few loose ends, but most of it has been managed. Can you kind of maybe step us through how you did work with those people?
Well, Councilman, I think to brag a little bit here is most of those folks knew me and knew my background, and they knew that I had kind of cut my teeth, if you will, on reading and writing documents. So I knew how to interpret them and know what they mean when what they say, and then able to work with the staff who didn't know me that well to kind of walk them through things. I maybe get to play a little bit of a teacher, I think, when I do that. So I get to people come to me with questions, and I say, well, this is what this means, and this is why it's said this way, and this is how we interpret it for purposes. So for example, issuing invoices and things. So it's a matter of some of its reputation, some of it being thoroughly immersed in the work for many years. So I think all of those things were the tools I was able to bring to bear on that situation.
So you feel you had the respect going in,
Yes.
and they knew who you were and how you managed things, and that helped in getting it
Yes.
completed.
Yes. And I like to think of myself as a collaborative person. We always sit down and talk about different ways to address issues, different ways things can be interpreted and things, and walk our way so that we all get to the same place in the end for the same reason.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Strong.
Thank you, Mr. President. The council president opened the dialogue with that fine line of blending between council and executive, but I think there's a sense sometimes from where we sit that the office actually reports more to the council, to the county executive, and is more akin to that. Tell us about a situation where you think you would tell the county executive he's wrong and you support the position of the council on a legal issue.
Well, if I can use an example from when I was with the city.
That's fine. That's exactly right on file.
There was somebody who came to us and said, we need to do this way, and I looked at the situation and said, yeah, that kind of makes sense, and I went and talked with the mayor about it and said, no, we need. And I was able to impress upon him that at that point that the reasons that the other side was presenting were all valid, and in fact we had the money to do it, so we should do it for safety reasons in that case, and he came around. So I'm able to sit down with folks and say, here's, again, it's kind of that teacher, being able to walk them through the issues and help them get to the point where they understand, where everybody understands both sides.
Well, but the little distinction on that is you only reported to the mayor, I believe, under that situation.
In that particular situation, yes.
This one, you actually report to two bodies.
Correct.
And so you have to tell one, perhaps, that they're wrong. And in this particular case, based on your location, where you sit, the communications are more in line with the county executive. We get that. But in this particular fact pattern I just gave you, that office is wrong. This body is correct. Tell us about how you're going to handle that.
In that situation, obviously now we're just talking about from a legal perspective, right?
Just a legal perspective.
Then
they can be on right or wrong on policy. We're not talking about policy.
We're not talking about policy. We're talking about law. Then yes, that's my job to tell whoever's wrong that he or she is wrong. That's the job. We have to be able to say this legal path that you're heading down is not in the best interest of the county. That's the position. That's what we have to be able to say. And I don't think I have any problem saying that.
And I just said you're fired based on giving me that opinion. Tell me what you do now.
I pack up my bags.
Thank you. Oh, that's my two. Come back.
All right. Council, anybody else?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I wanted to ask if you're aware of the change in policy that transpired after the executive change. Under Executive Fitzgerald, we had consolidated under Majid McLuth all of the different lawyers and different departments and different agencies under one roof. They all were consolidated. And then when the new administration came in under Executive Budish, there was some changes where all of a sudden we had lawyers in the IT department operating separate from the law department, and wanted to know what the status of that is now, if you know, and secondly, what your opinion with regard to the policy of consolidation versus going back to how things were before that.
Councilman, I would prefer that it all be within the law department, but I understand the value of having lawyers embedded in departments from time to time, but ultimately they do need to be the members of the law department. If you've got some specialty areas like I had with the development sections when I was with the city, I attended all of their internal meetings, so it was important for me to kind of be embedded with the department, but I was still an assistant director of law. And that's my preference is that's how it should be done. Does that answer the question? Is it?
So what I hear is that your preference is that no longer would the lawyers be under really in one office, under one roof, under one law director. Instead, you would prefer that under certain circumstances or specialties that those lawyers would be actually embedded, as you say, into a different office, economic development or IT. That's your preference?
I'm not sure I said that. I think
Okay.
I think I would like, I need them to be where the department, where the client feels they're comfortable being able to communicate, but they need to be members of the law department.
Okay.
And assistant directors of law.
Okay, so you saw what happened when Emily, I will name her, went out to IT, and she originally was under the umbrella and under the office of the law director, and then she was moved to the IT department, and you saw what occurred there. Okay.
And that shouldn't happen. No.
And what, if anything, would you do to prevent something like that to happen again?
I need to find out where all those positions are.
Yeah, that's really important because, you know, once that started to unravel, I think that was a consequence of the change in policy. So is that something you want to look at to
Absolutely.
ensure that we could at least avoid a similar situation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Miller?
Mr. President, to Mr. Huth, congratulations on your recommendation for appointment from the executive. And my question is about the relationship between the law department and the prosecutor's office. It's as to whether you feel that everything is in the memorandum of understanding is operating optimally, or do you think there's some things that we might take a look at in terms of doing some of that a little bit differently?
Mr. Councilman, I think there are some opportunities to look at that. I honestly have not seen the most recent MOU. I've been told that it's out there and kind of what it says, but I haven't actually seen the document yet. So I do hope to have a meeting with Prosecutor O'Malley as soon as possible so that we can sit down and talk through some of those issues. And I think it does present some kind of scheduling or timing challenges for us. I want to be sure that there's a way those issues don't crop up going forward.
And at this point, can you give us some general sense or examples of what some of those issues are?
Well, for example, if you know, when they call over here and say we need your help with a particular litigation matter, you know, it's not necessarily something we can just drop everything that we're doing and do that. So I need to have a little bit more kind of advance notice, I think, when issues come up or situations like that present themselves. So.
And other than that, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Huth, I just want to say that I've met with you particularly. I've read your resume, and I'm very impressed with the length and the breadth and the variety of things that you've done, and I think the executive chose wisely. I think you can help the county, and I'm looking forward to your service, and I'm a yes on your confirmation. And
thank you.
Enthusiastically so, and wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I believe Councilman Conwell asked to go again, and Councilman Schron asked to go again. But if
I just wish him well.
Okay, all right, Councilwoman Conwell.
Mr. Huth, the previous law directors decided to play an active role in advocating for policies such as voting rights, marriage equality, as well as filing amicus briefs on behalf of some of these issues. Will you play this type of role as a law director? And if so, what will your approach be in including counsel on developing policy positions in high-profile matters?
Well, Councilman, the law department doesn't doesn't move policy forward unless the client asks it to or tells it to, and you're the client. So that direction has to come from the client before the law department would do those things. I'm not going to run off on my own and do anything policy related like that.
But what role will you play? Will you be okay in terms of advocating for that policy if that's something that we brought forward to you?
Certainly, if that's the direction of the client, certainly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Councilman Schwan again.
Yeah, just only because on the tail end of that, I was pleased to hear that you're not going to be an independent person going after ideas and thoughts from this office. That's not your role. Is that,
Right,
is that
correct.
clearly what, at least I'm understanding the way the question and the answer came out?
Yes, I was hoping I communicated that, yes.
Yeah, well, what was alluded to was that there was some independence prior to that were done as rogue activities, not necessarily in support of a policy. So, as you're well aware, the jail system is going to be one of our biggest legal issues going forward. How much time have you actually spent in the jail physically inside the four walls?
Me?
Yes. I'm not saying as a visitor. If I needed to add that to it, I'm sorry. That
Yeah, well, I'm glad you clarified. I don't think I've ever actually even been as far as a visit the visitors area. I've never had any reason to be there. That I can think of. I don't.
Applying for the chief legal office, this is going to be one of our top legal issues. These are going to be some of our top legal concerns, and this space is going to be in the limelight for the next 2 years, more than likely.
At least.
For whoever's sitting in that chair.
Right.
And you're telling this body you have no reason to think you should have been there? I'm sorry, but I tend to think that would be part of your study.
As a civil division attorney, I never had reason to be there. I think I walked through the jail in Lakewood once, but not downtown here.
Okay. All right. Have you ever tried a case before?
No, that's not entirely true. I had a case in front of Judge Pianca once for a client while I was with Con Kleinman.
Okay.
So.
The MOU that was alluded to is a balancing between this office and the county prosecutor. And you indicate you haven't read the MOU yet?
I have not.
Well, just one more that's on that same vein then. Should there be an independent sheriff? Because, again, this is a conversation that's coming up. The jail is going to be probably one of our most highly focused things for the next 2 years in this county. Should there be an independent sheriff, in your legal opinion?
Well, right now under the charter, no, there isn't an independent sheriff. But if that's the choice that the people of the county make to amend the charter in that regard, then fine. I don't have a position on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Baker.
Just one question to follow up with, Mr. Schron's comment about the working relationship that we will have with you. We have, I think, an outstanding staff attorney right now who is unfortunately leaving, but we're interviewing. What is your idea about that collaboration between our staff attorney who tries to guide us through some issues in legislation and any questions that we may have on research and things that perhaps you're doing that we're unaware of? Where do those lines come together that you would be forthright in coming down to the office and saying, hey, can we sit down and talk for a while, or there's an issue I want to talk to you about, or something's brewing, or how collaborative are you in that relationship between our staff attorney and yourself?
I think, well, in the most recent example, we showed that we'd be very collaborative. I think, I like the way you describe the role in the council office as staff attorney, because ultimately, of course, again, this office advises and represents, but that doesn't mean we can't work with all the different offices, prosecutor's office, your staff attorney to sort through issues. So I think, again, it's always being willing to sit down and talk.
I guess my question, though, is: are you forthright? Will you go out of your way to, work with issues that we may not even be aware of? A lot of times things happen, and then after the fact, we may get a visit and have some conversation, but I guess I'm looking for a stronger relationship between yourself and our staff attorney.
Councilman, I'd be happy to do that at any time, to have a strong relationship with that office or that individual. There's, multiple minds always can find solutions.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Councilman Gallagher?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've already stated that you're going to be an independent thinker, do what's right. Do you believe that all the employees, Cuyahoga County elected employees, the unelected employees are equal and the same under the rights that they should be given as employees here?
Certainly.
Treatment should be the same?
Certainly.
As a law director, and the reason I say this, I talked to the previous law director who was a very nice man, but it didn't seem to be very aggressive. We had some recent problems in this county. Some people got in trouble. Some people were put on paid leave until they figured it out. Some other people got in trouble, kept their job. Not only kept their job, kept their pay, and kept their position, and are making decisions on the lives of employees in this county. As law director, would you be willing to write a letter to the powers that be it the executive or the council, expressing your pleasure or displeasure with that situation? Or is that not within the realm of what the law director should be?
Councilman, I don't know that I would write a letter, but it's certainly a conversation I would have.
And who would you have that conversation with?
Whoever the appointing authority is.
So going back to what Mr. Shrine asked you, I guess you're going to be having if confirmed, you're going to be having a conversation in about 15 minutes, and maybe you're going to have to pack your bags.
I've already got it in a couple of boxes right now, so I'm moving from one office to another.
I understand. So. You know, you've been around. This is a tough situation, and I think it's important that we understand who you are and where you're willing to go. And we have people in this county that I'm very disappointed with that go with the flow. And I understand they got to feed their families, and so do you. But there's something called integrity that I think is being chipped away here. And I'm really looking for someone that's got the ability to stand up on their moral position and stand there and take the hit if they have to take the hit for the good of the employees of this county and for the good of the taxpayers of this county. I think they're always left out, and I think there's a schism with the haves and have-nots in society, and certainly it follows in this county. And I'm going to be talking to you, if confirmed, on what we can do about that.
Be happy to have the conversation.
Going back to the relationship with the prosecutor, it's been difficult from the beginning. Do you have any history on that?
Yes, Councilman, I was actually in that office when everything was coming together on this side, so I've gotten to see it from both sides.
Well, what side are you on?
I'm on this side right now.
Good answer. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Huth, thank you for this last hour of give and take. I would just say that listening to the others and that our experience, which is frankly not unusual in local government or state government, is that regardless of the fact that the law director is by charter our legal counsel as well, that even with a variety of people with different talents, it never seems to really go that way. And so I would just ask that you make an effort to tilt that balance in the right direction, that you be confident in who you are, because you are coming into a difficult job at a difficult time, that you be willing to speak truth to power, whether it's the county council or the executive or anyone else, and be transparent with us, and we'll have respect for you, and you'll have respect for us, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Conwell.
Through the chair to Mr. Huth, I view the law director position as one that needs to have a close relationship with the IG, the HR director, as well as the prosecutor. And you touched a little bit on the prosecutor already. Have you given any thought to how you would go about forming these relationships, and how close you want to, if you agree with my opinion or not?
Councilman, I think it's important for the law director to have a close relationship with all those directors. I think you know from the work in the development department, I have developed a pretty close relationship with the Inspector General's office. It's proven to be very productive. I know Mr. Dykes, and I've worked with him, but not in this kind of a position. But certainly, it's a relationship that needs to be strong.
And last chance. All right. Good. Well, I'd like to ask for a motion to recommend. Ask for a motion to recommend resolution number R 2019-0105 to the full council for second reading adoption under suspension of the rules. So moved. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, would you please call the roll on this vote?
Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuma?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Mr. Jones is still absent. Ms. Brown? Yes. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Council President Brady?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Well, this will be considered on the council's regular meeting and on the agenda this evening. Thank you very much. We now move to item 5 at the Committee of the Whole, which will be a discussion in executive session. All meetings of Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meeting Laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During the executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All matters are made in public. This afternoon, the council's Committee of the Whole will go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we will ask those not specifically needed for executive session to remain in council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent committee room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session is ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining matters? Been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Moving to executive session, Ms. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Tuma?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Schron? Yes. Ms. Conwell? Yes. Mr. Jones is still absent. Ms. Brown? Yes. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Council President Brady?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Well, we'll adjourn for the executive session. We're going to continue with item 6. And item 6 is the proposed ordinance authorizing measures to assist the employees of the Sheriff's Department who are being displaced because of the transition of medical services to the Metro HIS system. And the administration, I believe Mr. Morales, but I'm not quite sure, will be presenting.
Good afternoon.
Here we go again. Ms. Morales.
Ed Morales for the Department of Human Resources. We have two agreements on the agenda dealing with the transition of medical services from the county to the Metro Health System. And those agreements are on your agenda and were discussed in executive session.
All right.
In addition,
for some reason, I had the impression that there was something more besides what we had discussed in executive session.
Yes,
if there's
sir.
Not,
yes.
You know.
Yes, I wasn't sure if you wanted to go right to that immediately.
Yes.
There is a companion ordinance that is also being proposed. And the ordinance, the purpose of the ordinance is to authorize the county to provide the same benefit package to the 3 non-bargaining employees that are being affected by the transition to Metro Health. And so that ordinance is a temporary ordinance as presented to you that would not be codified and would expire once those benefits had been allocated to the affected non-bargaining personnel. And the ordinance simply says the council authorizes that the same package that has been agreed to with the unionized employees be provided to the non-bargaining employees.
All right. Are there any further questions on this matter? No, we. All right. Hearing none, no miscellaneous business. The committee of the whole is adjourned. Thank you. And we will be reconvening for the regular meeting at 5 o'clock.